Alright, so here we have PAT 9000. So you can see it's in pretty good cosmetic condition. Really the only issues with it are this binding post is cracked off, and of course there's no actual use for these other than if you just want bench power, but the games don't need them. And then there's one switch escutcheon missing on number 10 here, but otherwise it's all there. It is missing the Lexan covers over the monitors, but I suppose, I mean, it wouldn't be something that'd be too hard to make yourself. You can see this one has it. I have one for the other one. It's just not on there right now, but it's just smoked Lexan with a little bed in the bottom. So there's not much to it, and then it just attaches with these little. Actually, this one has it in place right there. So that's it. And then it has the back door for the 13-inch vector, but the door for the raster is missing, and it is the same thing as this. But the vector does have the fan. There is no fan for the raster monitor, so this is just off right now, just because the connector isn't long enough to go into the back to see it. But if we power it up here. So it's got two boards hooked up to it right now. There's a space stool and a centipede sitting over there. You can see the spot killer on the vector on here. So space stool is game A, so we'll hit that. And centipede is game B. Now I guess if you're unfamiliar with this, what the PAT 9000 is it's simply just a bench test fixture. It doesn't really have any diagnostic capabilities. It's just simply it's simply a good solution for bench testing, without having to make up your own adapters and everything. And then it basically has just kind of a universal control layout that can be compatible with just about any game. And of course, it's designed for Atari games, and so it has, each of the games has their own individual plugs. There's about, I don't know, there's at least 15 of them here in this box that are included. Like this one's for Millipede. I don't know if you can see it. There you go. But and then there's two 44-pin connectors that come out of the side, and then the program plugs automatically wire everything up and map everything to where it needs to go. And then if there's an additional connector, which of course both these games have them, then it comes out of the plug. Now, this unit does come with two of the 44 pins. This one is from my unit that I'm keeping, so it comes with this one, and then it has this one, which is ready to go, but it does have it has a 36-pin adapter on it, which I'm not sure what they're doing with it, but you can simply just unplug it, and then you just get yourself a 44-pin wire wrap connector, and it just slides right into the .100 header connector here. So so it'll just need that connector, and then then you got both 44 pins. So these are all factory Ataris. I know there's like System 1 and 2, and there's a space stool right there. The space stool plug is one from my own setup, but it has a custom wired JAMA as well, so that'll be quite useful. So as you can see here, when the games are hooked up, basically, so you can hook up two games at the same time, and if you happen to have two raster games, you'll just see one at a time, and you can switch between them using the game A/B switch. And it switches video and everything. And it does do, I believe it is compatible with black and white games. I've never actually had any black and white cables, because most of the distributors use the CTS1 system for that. But I believe it actually has black and white conversion, so it'll show up on the color monitor if you have any of the older plugs. And of course, if you have two, one vector and one raster, it'll just map them to the monitors, and they'll both work the entire time. Now, so game A or game B will not power up with it game A. So so if you run two boards, or if you're only running one, you have to run it on A. So on this one, A is Space Duel and B is Centipede. So you can see the way it's mapping for the starts. So you can see it says 1 and 2A here. So these are your starts for Space Duel. These are your starts for Centipede. It's on free play. This board has a bad RAM, possibly some other issues. So it's just sitting here and doing this. But the Space Duel is working okay. And then of course here's your control select. So whenever you turn PAT 9000s on, they always seem to, for whatever reason, they always default to 2. So you got to put it down here to 1. So this would be Space Duel player 1. This would be Centipede player 1. Then there's different option switches. In Space Duel in particular, you can see this one right here is cocktail mode. Since in Atari games they bring the cocktail out to a pin that you can ground on the edge connector, and it actually just goes into cocktail mode depending on the cabinet that it's plugged into. And then this is the game select switch, and then this would be the LED for the game select. So if we hit give it a credit, you can see that starts flashing and it goes to this screen, and then you can select it here and run player 1. So you can hit start, and you can just use these to spin it and everything. And then we can actually start. If we go to player B, you can see how it switches the sound, and we can actually start the Centipede too. But we got to hit there. And again, something's really messed up with this board, but so there you go. And now one other option that's kind of unique to the PAT is this function right here, switch function. And you can see how it's set in the up position right now, which basically just means you hit a button and it just works as intended. And there's also this one, which will hold it down. When you press it once, it's now actually keeping the button down. You can reset it by flipping it back up. And then there's also repeating mode. So you can hit this a few times, and it'll just keep firing on its own. So you can do this to actually have it start games on its own and just keep playing the game basically by itself, kind of as a burn-in test. So that is one of the the unique features of the PAT. But then also you can see here on Atari games the reset is brought out to the edge connector, so the PAT 9000 can read it. So when it's in normal, here I'll hit the reset on this Centipede board. If I hit it a few times, you can see every time you hit a reset, the LED will just flash. Now if you set it for latch, if you hit it once, it'll go on and stay on. And that's useful if you have boards that happen to have some sort of reset issue. And you can let it sit on here for a while and come back later, and you can see it'll tell you if it reset, and then you can just flip it down to reset it. Other than that, of course, your 3 coin switches, left, right, and then the center, and there actually is you can hear it inside. There's a counter inside, just so it's so you can hear the click to see that your coin counter circuits are working. And now the way actually, I guess you can see this too. So all these other switches, it's depending on the game, on what controls are used what. But I believe Battlezone uses these here, these kind of differential momentary switches. Or you switch pot, a couple other option switches. And now the joystick is used for everything. It's actually an analog stick. But the circuitry inside can emulate any sort of control. So you can see it's got the LEDs for clock and direction, so it can emulate any obstacle control, either a 1-axis like a spinner or a 2-axis like a trackball. And then of course just standard digital sticks too. It'll act as those. So, and then generally, you're not too concerned with orientation and things like that, because it is just a testing rig. It's not really meant to play. So, but it is adjustable. There are pots inside. I'll show you in a second, and how you can actually adjust the centering and the rates of the clock direction depending on how far you're moving it. Now the way the power system works on this, as you can see, if I flip them down, they're off. And if you flip it, you can flip them back up again. So this is the standby position. This is off, and then this would be standby. And then when you flip the game on, you hit it up momentarily, and then it powers it up. Now the reason it does this is the PAT 9000 has basically current sensing, current limiting capability. So if there's any issues with your board, if there's some sort of short somewhere, or something along those lines, it will. You can set the limits and how much current you want on a board inside the PAT 9000, and then when it gets to a certain level, it'll trip, and then when it goes off, it'll tell you. You can see how the LEDs go out here, but if there is a trip, the LED where it tripped on will stay lit. So if it finds a short or an overcurrent on 5, on the +5, that LED will stay lit after it trips. And and of course it does the same for both games. Now, if you pop it open, it's got these nice quarter turn connectors for a quick. There's 3 of them in the front. I'll never lock the middle one. But so here's the card cage, and I believe the one on the left here is the power board. So there's your current sensing adjustments, and oh no, I'm sorry, this is the video conversion. Yeah, because you get brightness and contrast. So these are your current adjustments here. And then this board here is for the all these pots, or for adjusting the joystick sensitivity, rate, centering, all that sort of thing. And inside here you can see that there's a switcher installed. Now, I've seen this done on PAT 9000s in the past, and generally it was kind of an inelegant solution, but yeah, it is almost necessary to do this if, like in the later lives of PAT 9000s, a lot of these were doing a lot of pole position repairs, because there was a lot of issues with those, and you couldn't run 2 of them at the same time off of one AR2. It just wasn't enough current in the thing. I mean, even just regular machines, you'll notice, uses 2 AR2 boards to power one board set. But, so, I guess it was a fairly common thing to hack in a switcher. Now, it was really done well this way. I don't know if this was some sort of factory recommendation, or if this was just the work of a tech that doesn't like half-assing things. But so the switcher is only sending 5 volts. The rest of the voltages are derived from the normal places on the AR2. But the switcher is actually powered by the same 5-volt relay through the use of this relay right here. So the switcher is actually power on and off, and it's put in a manner that didn't disturb the wiring or anything. There's no wires cut or hacked or anything in this. So what they simply did was remove the 2N3055 from the AR2, and it's feeding the 5 volts in right where the transistor was. And then these 2 wires here are I'm guessing what's powering the relay, and then there's 2 more tap-in connectors just on the power brick for the AC. So that's it. So I mean, it's completely reversible without really leaving a mark at all on this unit. So it's actually a good solution, and I'd leave it in there. My regular PAT is totally stock. It doesn't have this, and it might almost be worth doing. And you can see there's also this black alligator clip lead. It's just going from the ground of the card cage, and then it's just clipping onto the power brick. That's actually a factory recommendation. There was a service bulletin about that, and it was actually for they actually put it out and recommended it if you're testing pole position board sets. They wanted you to do this because it I guess just connecting the power brick to the ground here caused less sensitivity issues with the current trip, since pole position was a very high current board set. So I've left it in. You can just it's just clipped in there. So I don't know if it's even necessary with the switcher, but I'll leave it. But otherwise, it's actually in really good condition. The 3 relays which you probably can't see, but they're back there. So there's three 3-pole relays in the back, and those are actually what's switching the games. If I hit them off, you can hear them clicking. So if you hear that click, so there's relays way back there, and that's what's actually changing the power. And then, of course, if both of them are off, then that relay hits and it turns the switcher off. Now, one common issue with the PAT 9000s is that that relay, just from use over time and running a lot of high current boards, the relays can get kind of pitted and damaged contacts, and they can stick. And it's usually on the 5-volt lines, where even if you turn the game off, the 5 volts will actually stay stuck on, even though the PAT 9000 says it's off. And then generally what you'd have to do is just get in the back and just try to hit the back of it, usually a sharp wrap with a screwdriver. My unit still does that from time to time. But this unit, I've messed with it, for a bit here, and it seems to be in fine shape. The relays seem to have no issues. So it's actually pretty in great condition. And of course, these are actually circuit breakers, the main power end for the monitors, and it's a useful feature, especially if you want to bench test XYs. Color monitors on the bench. You can just disconnect the harness to the 13-inch and plug it in here. And if you're like me, you probably you repair everything and test everything in circuit before you power it up for the first time anyway. But if there are any issues, you can power this up, and it's a sensitive circuit breaker, so it'll go after 10 or 20 seconds. But I've had that happen where I used to have a 6100 hooked up for a test monitor, and something went wrong with it, and the breaker on here tripped. So it's a nice feature. But now, so you see that the G07 on this unit has had a couple modifications to it, which are actually really useful. Again, they've never been done to mine, and it's actually a constant headache. I need to do this. But now, so most Atari games generally are, for the most part, sync in a pretty similar way. A couple games seem to be a little more sensitive, like Missile Command, when you hook them up to a PAT 9000. Like if it's configured for, say, Centipede. So the horizontal frequency pot and the vertical hold pot have been brought out to the front, so you can adjust it. And generally, the vertical hold you won't have to use too much, but the horizontal frequency is a pretty common thing to need to be adjusted. And then there's also, somebody took us to Williams' test panel and wired the center switch here to send because there's one sync line coming from the PAT 9000 to the monitor, and the switch has been wired in to send sync either to the main connector or to the auxiliary 3-pin connector. And so there's going to be some boards where that'll be a useful feature. These other two buttons don't do anything, but so it's a couple nice mods. And of course, this thing, if you get some Lexan over the front, it'll really look nice. But because you don't see very many of these with a working ampliphone to begin with, but we'll show you what it looks like in the back here. So both of these monitors have been capped. And that has a replacement flyback installed. So it's pretty clean and in good condition. Now the tube itself has it's got a couple issues. You can see there's a little bit of phosphor missing up in the corners and in the middle. So don't ask me how that happened, but that's it. Now, all the serial number tags in this are matching. This is number 55. You can see right there. Right there. There's one on this monitor too, right there. And then on the inside, on the power bricks and the card cage and on the sticker on the back, it's all matching. So it's number 55. And then if you actually on the side here, I don't know if you can see this stuff. So these are auxiliary connectors, and there's a power outlet as well. So you can connect other external monitors, I believe, and then I believe you can add a trackball input on the side if you like. And then of course down here is the monitor output and the power cord coming in. And then there's 2 speakers in the back, and then a cooling fan. And that's it. So these are really useful for benching boards, especially if you do a lot of work on Atari. You know, it's a nice box. Nothing that you can't make up yourself. You know, it's not like a fluke system or even a cat box, which is a little more tedious to use. But so again, there's no actual troubleshooting capability. These are just for powering boards in your bench. But it's nice if you do a lot of work on Atari. Let's give it another couple credits here. So your self-test, and then you can either do it temporarily, or it's got the on switch, and there's also the diag switch and the slam switch, which is useful. Some games like Tempest use the slam switch for changing monitor test patterns, things like that. So there it is.